Good morning. My name is Kristaps. I'm from Latvia, and I represent the people of the team.
Even louder. Even louder.
We also have Andres and Santa there, and we have a couple of more as well. We have successfully launched the 3 high-altitude balloons so far in the past 2 years, and we also successfully recovered them. So that's probably why I was asked to come and tell you about it today. It was a pretty fun project, and I hope you would do something like that as well. So how it all started, a few years ago I stumbled upon a funny video on YouTube where Rick Astley sang his famous song about whatever it was. And I quite liked that idea, so they also put all details on how they did it online, so I could read, and well, it seemed like we could do something like that as well, without the singing part, but still. I sent that video to my teammate, and he agreed that we really should try to do something like that. It would be interesting, and maybe we would even learn something new from it while doing it. So we started to look for more information how to do it, and quickly learned that this is a fairly popular hobby in Great Britain. They are doing pretty often launches. There is this UK LAASE. It's a United Kingdom High Altitude Society. It's not an official organization, but it joins just friendly people with all around the world. There are people from Germany, Sweden, Finland, Poland, Australia, United States, and it is really very friendly and helpful community and a great source of information. First, a bit of theory. Whatever some might say, balloons really don't fly in space. Those are not space missions or whatever. Balloons need atmosphere. Officially, space boundary is the Kármán line that lies at an altitude of 100 kilometers above the sea level. Amateur balloons reach about 20 to 45 kilometers altitude, so that's no higher than stratosphere. Environment up there is very similar to the surface of Mars. It's very dry, it's just 1% atmosphere. Temperature is about -10 to -30 degrees below zero, and there's also strong radiation from the sun. So it's pretty extreme up there. Oh yeah, I said balloons don't fly in space, but there are 2 exceptions. On 1960s, NASA launched 2 balloons into orbit. Those were Echo 1 and Echo 2. They were the first passive communication satellites. And as you can see, they were pretty big. Those down there are people. So what do you need to do a project like this? You need a balloon, a parachute, a payload box that will contain all the electronics, transmitter, camera, and all the rest. Balloon is a latex balloon. It's a natural material and will biodegrade in the sunlight and water. Its size depends on how heavy your equipment is and how high you want it to go. You also need a parachute that will bring everything safely down. You could make your own parachute, or you can just buy a ready-made. Its size depends on your payload's weight. You can calculate it quite easily, but you first have to know how heavy your payload will be. Normal descent rate is about 5 meters per second at sea level. You also will need a lighter than air gas. It can be helium or hydrogen. We used hydrogen. And then you would also need to build your own payload, the tracker. That is the most interesting part. All the electronics and such. Also, it's worth getting your friends involved in this project, because you can't or won't have time to do everything else, and it's fun anyway to do it in team. First thing, safety. This is a very important thing. To launch a balloon, you need to follow a few rules. There's the ICAO convention, EU regulation, and then comes your own local laws. You need to know and follow these rules because they are made for safety for those in the air and on the ground also. In short, make your payload as lightweight as possible and always think, would you be ready to take your own payload on your head or a car or house? Because you can predict where your payload will come down, but you won't know exactly on what will it come down. Anything can happen, you know the Murphy law, so be ready just. Also, your payload will have to survive cold, heat, vibrations, so it has to be strong enough also. Payload box is usually made from polystyrene. It's just a simple box, there's no high-tech. So you could also print your own 3D printer or whatever. It has to be lightweight, remember that. Polystyrene is strong enough, it provides a good thermal insulation, that's important, and if anything bad happens, it can also easily deform itself. Yeah, there's Ed's Moore test. It means if you're not ready to drop your payload down the stairs and expect it to continue working without problems, then you should probably not launch it in the air. It might seem like an overreaction, but you really should be ready for anything. Temperature can kill electronics, not just cold, but also heat, because there's not much atmosphere to take the heat away from the heating electronics. Also vibrations, there can be quite a lot. When the balloon bursts, it comes down very quickly, and there's a lot of tumbling and vibrations, so it can easily disconnect some sensor, which will be fine if it doesn't mean anything else, but it can also disconnect perhaps your batteries, and then your tracker will stop transmitting. If you have a backup tracker, that's good, but anyway, it won't be good, so be ready for anything, and remember, you should be ready to drop your payload down the stairs and expect it to work without problems. On our second flight, the camera turned off right after the burst, so probably its battery is disconnected, but so we didn't do all that we should be doing. One of the most commonly found things in a payload box is a simple camera that takes pictures. We use a small Canon photo camera with an external battery. Canons are pretty good because you can use a Canon Hacker's development kit on it. It's like an operating system, but well, simpler, and you can order it to take pictures after a certain interval, or take videos also, log temperatures, and such. To know where a payload is located during the flight, we use the radio tracker. That's the big picture how it all works. There are other options like mobile network or satellite communications, but those are either too unreliable or too complicated and expensive. Flight computer gets GPS data from satellites, then processes it and transmits down. On the ground, there are many radio receivers. Those are volunteers. They hear the signal, decode it, and upload the decoded telemetry to the central server. The more listeners you have, the better. It provides redundancy. A simple tracker consists of a microcontroller, a GPS receiver, and a radio transmitter, at least those things. It can also have various sensors or devices attached. Microcontroller is your own choice. It can be PITs or AVR or something else. We use AVRs or Arduinos. GPS is an important thing. It has to work above the 18-kilometer COCOM limit. Hub community usually uses U-blocks GPS modules because they are specified to work above 50 kilometers altitude. And radio system is what you can use, what you like. As licensed radiometers, you could transmit on 2 meters or 70 centimeter band. You could also use automated position reporting system or APRS. We don't have call signs yet, so we couldn't use those. And we used the 70 centimeter ISM band that's license free, and that's what most Europeans do. It's the industrial, scientific, medical equipment band, and you can transmit it if you follow a few rules, like maximum power and duty cycle. This is what our trackers look like. That's the microcontroller, and the blue one. And the green one is a radio module. Also, this one is a radio module, and then GPS. Yeah, it's better. Thank you. Those are not very pretty, but they worked. Antenna on payloads is usually a quarter wave antenna. It looks like this. Well, upside down, because it transmits down. It is easy to make, and it is small enough. That's just a RG158 cable with drinking straws and a connector. So tracker's program works in an infinite loop. It gets data from the GPS, adds sensor data, forms telemetry sentence, and then transmits it down. Also, there's a checksum at the end. That's the call sign, sequence number, time, latitude, longitude, altitude. Then you can add speed, satellites, temperature, and end with checksum and the transmit. The shorter this telemetry string is, the better, because that's a less chance to introduce an error while receiving it. Since we're using the ISM band, we must use no more than 10 milliwatts. It might seem like a tiny amount of power, but in reality it is enough to work down to the horizon, because as the balloon is way up in the air, it has a clear line of sight. We use the RTT or radio teletype because it's the easiest of data modes, only 2 tones. But if you can also use different modes as well, like Domino X, Contestia, Thor, Olivia, or something else. I have a tracker there, and as you can hear, it's the RTT. So radio tracker sends the data, volunteer listeners on the ground receive it, decode it, and upload it to the hub server. I can demonstrate it live, but this is how looks the DL-FLDG program. That's a modified version of FLDG that's meant for high altitude balloons. That's the RTT on the waterfall, as you can see. Central server is the hub.org. Looks like this. There are a few balloons. They are not probably in the air right now. Those are just tests. But this is how the balloon map looks like. So that's the radio horizon. For 5, 15, and 30 kilometers altitude, as you can see, it's the footprint is pretty big and covers many countries. So it's an international event when you launch a balloon. You can get several countries tracking it. On our first launch, balloon was heard in Warsaw, in Poland. That's 620 kilometers. And we were very happy when that happened because it meant on the first try we had done everything right with our radio tracker. When you make a tracker, it's the most important thing to send down position reports. But you can also make it send down pictures. That's technically more difficult, but it's possible. Philip Heron from Northern Ireland has developed SSDV, that's slow scan digital video, though it's not really video, it's just still pictures, so don't confuse it with SSDV. One possibility is to use AVR microcontroller with a serial camera, or you could also use a Raspberry Pi with PiCam or any other webcam. Just attach batteries and it works. It works the same as a simple tracker. It gets the GPS data, forms a telemetry sentence, then transmits it down, but it also takes pictures at certain intervals and then adds image packets in between the telemetry packets. And the DLFLDG program automatically decodes them and makes the pictures. Those are pictures received on our last flight. Some pictures turned out green because our tracker had a firmware issue with the white balance, but that's actually good news because we have another reason to try it again. One picture takes about 4 to 6 minutes to transmit at 300 baud. It also greatly depends on the details in the picture and how big the picture is. You could send bigger pictures, bigger images at the altitude because you have the flight is pretty long. It takes about almost 2 hours to get to the top. So you can send bigger pictures. It will be prettier, though less. When you send pictures, you have to use bigger speeds, like 300 or 600 baud. Because at 50 baud it will take very long time and it won't be useful really. But a bigger speed means you have less range, so you have to have more trackers. But as we proved, it wasn't a problem with just so many trackers in Latvia and in Estonia as well. And this is our backup. Those are saying that real men don't make backups, but we did. On our first 2 flights, we used a mobile phone with a custom script that sent down position short messages, but it wasn't very useful. So if you think about sending up a mobile phone, then just don't do it. Make another radio tracker. It will be a lot more useful. So once the payload is ready, how do you know when you can launch a balloon and where will it come down? There is, of course, a great possibility to land it in Russia, and that won't be good. Winds at different altitudes can blow in very different speeds and directions. So these are the surface winds, and this is Baltics here. These are winds at the 10-kilometer altitude. That's the jet stream, probably. And these are winds at 30-kilometer altitude. That's the
30 kilometers.
yes. That's the polar vortex. So winds at different altitudes blow in different directions. There are American NOAA agency generates weather forecasts for the whole world, and they are available for free. They update them in 4 times per day. UK has members have created a service that takes this data and makes a prediction of balloon's flight path. And using that tool greatly increases your chances of successful recovery of your payload. I'll show you how to do it. No, close enough. There's a calculator as well. Say if your payload is 1 kilogram and you want a 5-meter ascent rate. You can also use hydrogen. It gives us 32 kilometers. And here's the prediction for an hour in advance. That means I wouldn't launch. Let's take a few days in advance. Also not great. Well, in winds, in winter, upper winds are pretty strong, and that's no season for balloons. But in summer, they are much more calmer, so that's why most launches happen in summer. Also, prediction is only accurate as your input data are accurate. If you make a prediction for 35 kilometers, but your balloon bursts at 30 kilometers, then prediction won't be accurate. And as always with the weather, you can't really trust the prediction for more than 3 days in advance. It makes a general prediction, but it won't be accurate anyway. So you shouldn't cross the border probably. You really shouldn't fly over the big cities, because you can't be sure when your balloon bursts. It can happen prematurely. And you probably shouldn't really land near big cities and waters. It would reduce your chances of recovery, because if there is a water, payload probably will land in the water. These are predictions for summer, how they have been. As you can see, sometimes landing can happen very close to the launch site. If you launched on 1st April, then your trajectory might be a bit suspicious as well. It was the joke that the community made for 1st April. So finally everything is ready, everything has been tested and tested again. Then let's launch the balloon. It is really worth to have a checklist with all the actions you have to do on the launch date or on the previous day as well. Because it is a nervous event, and might easily forget something to turn on, or something more important as well. We forgot to turn on the photo camera on our first 2 launches. We had to rip apart the payload box to turn it on. So first start all the electronics and check that all works as expected. Because once the balloon filling starts, there is no way back, just forward. You won't be able to get the gas out of the balloon. Then roll out the balloon, attach it to the filling tube and the counterweight, and start filling. As you can see, we did it just middle. There is no high-tech.
Where do you get the balloons? Buy them somewhere?
Yes, there's randomairspace.co.uk. That's the main source of balloon-related elements. While the balloon is filling, tie all the payload train from the balloon to the parachute, and to the parachute, from the parachute to be ready to tie it to the balloon. Knots are very important because if one of them comes loose, then all mission can fail. So be ready to practice them before. When the balloon starts to lift the counterweight, then it has achieved the required lift. So balloon is on the top, then parachute is in the middle. It is always open, so you don't have to worry about it. And then payload is on the bottom. Just before the launch, remember to check the last time if telemetry is still coming in and it is displayed on the map and time is updated. So if all is good, then you can launch it. Once the balloon has been launched, it just has to work. There is no way to get it down on Earth to reboot or fix something. It has to handle all situations by itself. And once the balloon is in the air, we can start driving towards the predicted landing site. It will become more and more accurate as the balloon rises higher, and the live prediction will put it more precisely on the map. Telemetry is received by ground stations, and it is also very wise to have a receiver in the car with you. The balloon takes higher and higher and takes pretty pictures and does what else it has to do. From the side you can see how thin our planet's atmosphere is. So balloon has expanded from about 1.5 meters to about 7 or 10 meters. It's like a house, actually. And then it bursts and everything starts to fall down. As the atmosphere is very thin up there, it comes down very fast, up to 50 to 70 meters per second, or 250 kilometers per second. It vibrates a lot. It may tangle in the ropes or balloon remains, and that's where the stair test comes in handy. When the payload has reached about 20 to 50 kilometers, the parachute starts to work again. It all slowly stabilizes and starts to slow down. And then you head to the forest to recover your payload. So far, all our flights have ended up in more or less trees. The last one actually landed across 3 very tall trees and spent a week there before a tree surgeon got it done for us. Here you can see the actual and the predicted path. The difference was only 7 kilometers. Our last payload landed just 2 kilometers from the predicted landing site. But that's, well, your prediction is only as accurate as your input data is accurate. What else happens in the world? In between the regular up and down flights, there are some record attempts in altitude, distance, or duration. The most amazing last year's flight was B-64. That was a fairly small, as you can see, self-made balloon that circumnavigated the Earth 7 and almost 8 times. It was launched by Leo Benoit, Mike 0 X-ray Echo Romeo in July, and it was last heard in November near Iceland. It might have traveled in the polar night region, that's why it was lost. It's just a party balloon with a small tracker with solar panels. What else you can do with balloon? It is only limited by your imagination and probably rules also, but there are many kinds of experiments that can be done. Also, there will be a solar eclipse in the 2017 year in the United States, and some UKHAS members are working on a stabilized platform that would capture the moon's shadow from the stratosphere. And if you're really interested, you should probably start with the UKHAS wiki. It has all the information you would need, including guidelines, code samples, best practice. It is also worth to join the high altitude chat room. As I already said, it's a very friendly, very open community and helpful. And that's about it. Also, I want to thank you for tracking our payloads. It helps a lot. And I'm looking forward to track Estonia launches this year. Thank you.
Kas on Kristapsile äkki mingeid küsimusi konkreetselt?
Any interest, for example, from the Latvian Weather Service on this, because essentially the other observations in the projects are in rather poor situation. And I think from these balloon flights, from at least you could track the wind profile in the atmosphere and see how it, let's say, matches with the models. So has there been, for example, any interest from the weather services?
No, we haven't gotten any interest. Well, they are doing their own launches every second day, anyway. But yeah, maybe we could try contact them for the next time.
Because from the databases I see, Latvia is often a blank spot in errors and observations. So either these observations are not making it to the international databases, or maybe they are indeed occurring at a time when I have not checked.
I don't know about that. I know they are launching balloons because I have heard them. So, but I also have seen that the data on the maps are missing. Yes, that's true. But I don't know any details.
Veel äkki Kristapsile mingeid küsimusi?
Küsimusi ei ole, aga ma tahaks meenutada praegu Soome raadio omadele lugu XVII 65. aastate keskpaigul, kes seda sama asja kasutas õhupalliga, lasi lihtsalt ennast laata neid üles, need lendasid üle Soome ja ta lasi neid üles 6 või 7 tükki. Ja kuna tal endal olid ainult lükked, siis ta nimetas neid kõik ilmariteks. Ja need tegid päris huvitavaid asju tegid. Aga vanemad mehed peaks seda tõletama, AO ja AR ja niisugune mees. Nii et iga uus asi on hästi unustatud vana. See ei olnud küll küsimus, aga võib-olla kellelegi tuleb meelde.
The question is how expensive is this balloon? Let's say to buy it, not to get it loose at 30 kilometers, but to get up a very long wire, for example, up in the air, high up in the air. How expensive a balloon is?
A balloon costs from 60 euros to, I don't know, 200 euros. It depends on its size.
Yeah.
The more bigger, the more expensive.
So, like, just to get up a wire, a 60-euro balloon would do, yes?
Yes,
because
definitely.
The wire is not as heavy as this 1 kilogram or
yes.
1.5 kilogram tracker.
Yes, but you have to launch it on a very calm day because the wind will take it down anyway.
Okay.
But it's possible, it can be done, and that happens.
Et ühesõnaga 60 raha eest saab sealt osta sellise õhupalli ja siis võite omale traadipäevale lasta, aga sõltub tuulest, et see tuleb muidu alla, eks ole, kui tuulda maha tuua. Rahuliku ja see vaikse ilmaga, kus on lõusvad õhuvoolud ja see pall ise on ka läheb üles, eks ole, et siis ta võiks seda traati seal nagu üleval hoida küll, et nagu mingi pool kilti traati üles lasta oleks väga vahva ju proovida.
Britid on leiutanud asja, mida nad kutsuvad helikait. Ja see on ristsugutist lohest ja õhupallist. Ja see lendab isegi tuules, aga no
nii, aga we thank you, Kristaps. It was nice to have you here and hope that you will enjoy the rest of the day also. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.